The Balkans, home to amazing street food, civilized parliaments, and impossible to pronounce consonant clusters.
Ljuljashka.
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 And despite being the center of perhaps the most land disputes in history, this region has always had one thing going for it: being pretty damn good at music. From worldwide hits to consistent top 5s at Eurovision, this place is full of musical talent. And what if I told you that there was a time when the geopolitics in this region collided so heavily with their passion for music that it might actually have changed world history forever? This is one of the most bizarre stories I have ever heard. And it all connects to a song that you might have actually heard, even if you've never watched Eurovision. But in order to get the full picture, we need to go all the way back to the 1990s. So after Yugoslavia broke up in the 1990s, you had lots of new independent countries popping up like Slovenia, Bosnia, Croatia, and of course the union state of Serbia I Crna Gora, or as you might know it, Serbia and Montenegro. And as Yugoslavia was quite a Eurovision powerhouse back in the day, most of these countries were quick to participate under their independent flags. In the case of Serbia and Montenegro, they joined the contest just 1 year after the country was formed, and it was an instant success. Serbian music legend Željko Joksimovic landed them a second place in their first ever participation. And the success didn't stop there. In the year after, they instead sent a Montenegrin band, No Name, with a song that was my personal favorite from that year. Sauvijek Moja got a very respectable 7th place and enjoys cult status to this day. For example, the instrumental was used for the Love Love Peace Peace interval act from 2016. So at this point, things are looking very good for Serbia and Montenegro at the contest. And surely that success would continue in 2006 when Eurovision was held on Balkan soil for the first time in 16 years. Well... So in order to select their song for Eurovision 2006, Serbia and Montenegro held a national final called Evropesma, or Eurosong in English. A whopping 24 songs were set to compete in the final, with 12 being from Serbia and 12 from Montenegro. And in order to make the voting fair, they also had half the jury members be from Serbia, whereas the other half were Montenegrin. And on top of that, there was also a public televote. Now, heading into the contest, there were two big favorites contending for the win. On the Montenegrin side, you had the band No Name. Remember, the same guys who represented them the year before? This year they had an arguably weaker song, but among the 24 acts that were competing, they were still definitely one of the strongest. On the Serbian side, you had comedic duo Flamgosi featuring jazz singer Luis. They had already gotten a smash hit in Serbia with their song Ludi Letnji Ples, or as you might know it, Crazy Summer Dance. Sound familiar?
Paris, London, Lisbon, Kiev, Moscow, Prague and Rome, Copenhagen, Bucharest, Crazy Summer Dance.
Yeah, that country ball song from TikTok that has been streamed millions upon millions of times today was actually one of the favorites to represent Serbia and Montenegro back in 2006. But in order to win, you need the approval of both the jury and the public. And that's where things get really messy. So after an insanely long show, with all 24 acts performing their songs in full, the voting took place. And remember how I said that they tried to make the voting fair by having half the jury members be from Montenegro and the other half from Serbia? Well, it turns out it was anything but fair, because every single jury member on that panel had decided to vote tactically, with the Serbian jurors giving all their 12 points to Flamgosi, whereas the Montenegrin jury gave all their 12 points to No Name. Unfortunately for Serbia though, the Montenegrin jury took it one step further and purposely gave Flamgosi 0 points, whereas the Serbian jury at least threw No Name a couple of points out of fair play. But that's not the worst part, because when the televotes were announced, it turned out Flamgosi had completely smashed it, getting over 3 times as many votes as No Name. But because of the political voting from earlier, that still wasn't enough for them to win overall, and No Name winded up being declared as the winner. But thankfully, none of that mattered, and everyone were just happy and proud to have finally selected their Eurovision entrant.
We will stop the steal.
So yeah, what played out after the voting were basically the most chaotic scenes I have ever seen in this contest. People were booing, throwing things on stage, pushing things over. It actually got so bad that when No Name were called up to do their winner's performance, the producers had to cancel it and ask Flamgosi to go up and perform their song instead, just to calm everyone down. And things wouldn't get any better in the days after the contest. Politicians and media were now getting involved, with the Serbian side of course feeling cheated out of their victory, whereas the Montenegrin side could claim that technically no rules were broken. And since both sides had to agree on what song to send, it quickly became obvious that the results of the national final would not stand. In a last desperate attempt to solve the situation, they reached out to the European Broadcasting Union and asked them to declare the winner for them, which the EBU obviously refused. This fighting kept going all the way until the Eurovision submission deadline, and since they still couldn't agree by then, Serbia and Montenegro winded up having to withdraw from the contest completely. Okay, so Serbia and Montenegro had a silly fight over a silly song contest. Big deal. Didn't you say something about a whole country breaking up? Well, you see, I did forget to mention one tiny little detail. So as you might have figured out by now, 2006 was a year when tensions between Serbia and Montenegro were at an all-time high. The independence movement in Montenegro had been growing larger and larger ever since the country was established in 2003. And the protests and political pressure had gotten so massive that it was decided to let Montenegro hold a referendum of independence in 2006. However, the rules were strict. The referendum had to pass with a 55% supermajority, and it was required that at least half of Montenegro's population went to vote. And it was expected to be extremely close, with many of course feeling unsure over such a major decision. Now what if I told you that this referendum was set to take place on the exact same day as the Eurovision final? Remember, the same Eurovision that Serbia and Montenegro were missing from? And sure, it sounds silly to say that missing out on Eurovision would swing the entire referendum in one way or the other, but then you don't know how close this referendum actually was. On the 25th of May 2006, Montenegrins headed to the polls and the referendum passed with 0.5% of the vote. 0.5% in a small country like Montenegro equals to roughly 2,000 people. There are more people living on my street than were required to prevent this country from breaking up. Is it then unreasonable to think that out of all the voters who were unsure that day, but ultimately leaned toward leaving, maybe wouldn't have done that if it wasn't for this whole debacle? If it wasn't for weeks upon weeks of being labeled as cheaters and bad sports? If it wasn't for seeing their homeboys get absolutely humiliated on live TV? If it wasn't for the symbolic value of these two countries not even being able to agree on what song to send to a silly song contest? I'll let you be the boss on that, but most Serbs and Montenegrins that I've seen discussing this actually seem to lean toward, you know what? Yeah, maybe. Or even probably. Every vote counted that night. And an event like this might just have been enough to tip that narrow thin vote over the edge. And because of that, world history was changed basically forever. And yet, in some crazy way, that might actually not be the most insane part about this story.
Good evening, Jovana!
Good evening. So from Belgrade, the capital city of Serbia and Montenegro. So as you know, we don't have a song for you this year, but we promise that next year we will give you the best one. The best one. The best one.
12 points go to Serbia.
12 points go to Serbia.
Serbia. Serbia.
First 12 points go to Serbia.
La Serbie.
Anyways guys, thank you so much for watching this video. This is only my second video on this channel, so just like with the first one, please comment any feedback you may have. I really appreciate it. And please also comment what topics you want me to cover in future videos. And of course I also have to finish by giving a massive thank you for all the support on my first video. I could have never imagined so many people would watch it, and reading your guys' kind comments was just really touching to me. I don't know how else to put it. Thank you so much. I really mean it. See you in the next video. Until then, have a good one.